My husband has awakened. As a malicious male supporting character, he doesn't think about harming the male lead or pursuing the female lead, but instead spends every day thinking about making money, and even wants to get with me. By the time I transmigrated here, the story was already nearing its end. The female lead married the male lead, and the two lived happily together. As for me, a cannon fodder female supporting character, I ended up paired with the malicious male supporting character. One was disowned by their family, the other went bankrupt, a perfect match in misery. Watching the broadcast of the male and female lead's wedding scene on TV, I once again confirmed that I had truly crossed over. I became the wife of George, the villainous male supporting character in the novel. But now, the story has come to an end. The male and female leads have entered the hall of marriage, living a fairy tale-like happy life. The second male lead and the cannon fodder have exited the stage. Facing the bleakness of life, I glanced at the messy rental apartment, the untouched instant noodles on the table, and the tightly closed door. Letting out a quiet sigh, life is your own. I got up and started tidying the room, only to realize that clothes and bags were piled up like a mountain in the bedroom. By the way, this cannon fodder is a wealthy young lady who has never lifted a finger, raised as a tool for marriage alliances. Apart from her beauty, she is utterly useless. Her hobby is spending money, her specialty is shopping, and all she does every day is buy. Originally, her family was quite pleased to see her latch onto George as a powerful ally, but now that George has gone bankrupt, she has naturally been kicked out. All she can take with her are these clothes and bags. The novel ends here. How our future lives turn out is our own choice. My marriage to George was purely accidental. The original cannon fodder had intended to offer herself to the male lead, but by a twist of fate, she ended up having relations with George instead. To make matters worse, she was the female lead's friend. The female lead, feeling sorry for her friend's experience and believing George had taken advantage of her, insisted that George take responsibility. George, as the malicious male supporting character, was infatuated with the female lead but could never win her affection. Although he did many things to target the male lead, he was always obedient to the female lead. So, we got married just like that. Objectively speaking, George is a decent person. Although what happened that day was an accident, he still took responsibility in the end, especially since George, before his bankruptcy, was a highly sought-after scion of a wealthy family. In the eyes of my family, this was an opportunity too good to pass up, so they happily married me off, so much so that, as explicitly mentioned in the novel, even George suspected it might have been a scheme orchestrated by the cannon fodder family. Even if he had doubts, he was still good to the cannon fodder. Although there was no emotional connection, he didn't mistreat her in daily life. For over a year of marriage, he allowed the cannon fodder to spend money recklessly every day, and even when he went bankrupt, he didn't abandon his useless wife. Thinking about all this, I even feel a bit sorry for this villainous male character. He really didn't do anything wrong. He was just obsessively in love with someone who didn't love him back. There's nothing wrong with trying hard to pursue someone you like, but unfortunately, love can't be forced. As for the business world, it's a matter of winners and losers, and there's nothing more to say. I don't consider myself a particularly good person, but I do know the importance of cherishing blessings and repaying kindness. Leaving George now would truly be ungrateful. Moreover, I've just arrived in this world and have no idea where to go if I leave him for a while. It's better to just go with the flow for now. I spent the whole afternoon tidying up, and only managed to make the rental apartment look somewhat presentable. I was hungry too, so I opened the fridge, but all I found were leftover takeout meals, some of which even had an unpleasant spoiled smell. I rummaged through my wallet, then decisively grabbed 2 large bags of trash and headed out. The apartment George rented was small, but the location was quite good, with convenient amenities nearby. The nearby market had everything I needed. I bought some fresh fruits and vegetables, along with rice, flour, and cooking oil, carrying them home in several large and small bags. As soon as I stepped inside, my eyes met with the man sitting at the dining table. The novel had described his good looks many times, but seeing him in person made me truly understand what handsome meant. George's eyes were gentle, his gaze clear and light, with a somewhat refined temperament, not as sharp as described in the novel. Perhaps due to recent changes, he carried a somewhat gloomy and distant aura. His nose was tall and straight, seemingly revealing a resilient personality, yet such an extraordinary beauty was currently eating instant noodles. Stop eating instant noodles, I bought some groceries. I can whip something up quickly. George looked up at me in surprise. You can cook? I can, a little. I guess the original owner probably couldn't. I'm an average cook, just barely edible, but it's better than eating instant noodles. With that, I walked straight into the kitchen, completely ignoring George's scrutinizing gaze. I cooked a simple bowl of tomato and egg noodles, added a few slices of luncheon meat and a sunny side-up egg, and quickly stir-fried 2 side dishes. After cleaning up all afternoon, I was hungry too. Let's eat. Continuing to ignore George's scrutiny, I ate in big mouthfuls. Seeing how much I was enjoying the food, George also picked up his chopsticks and took a bite. Although he didn't say anything, the relaxation in his brows and eyes expressed his attitude toward the dinner. I observed him while eating. George eats with refined manners, clearly showing excellent upbringing. He doesn't lose his elegant demeanor. Did you hire a cleaner today? How much did it cost? I'll pay you back. No, I cleaned it up myself. You cleaned it up? George's eyes couldn't hide his astonishment. I put down my chopsticks, wiped my mouth, and said seriously, George, let's live well together. Perhaps my bold words left him speechless. After a moment of silence, George finally said, but didn't you say you wanted a divorce yesterday? Yesterday. It must have been the original host who couldn't bear this kind of life anymore. I quickly shook my head and explained, no, I was just talking nonsense yesterday because I drank too much. George, I never thought about divorcing you, and you don't need to give me any money. Don't worry, I've accepted reality. I still have a little savings left, and I'll be careful with my spending. Besides, I'll start working to support myself, and maybe even support you. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. George looked at me with a strange expression. I knew that the differences between me and the original character were too obvious, so it was normal for him to be suspicious, but the story has already ended, and I'm here now. Instead of exhausting myself trying to act like someone else, I'd rather just be myself freely, George said calmly. If you don't want a divorce, then forget it. Just let me know whenever you change your mind. I didn't say anything, just silently got up and started clearing the table. George looked around the tidy room, glanced at me busily working, and quietly went back to his own bedroom. After cleaning the kitchen, I went back to my room and started browsing second-hand websites, listing all the unused bags and clothes for sale. In reality, I am a freelancer, mainly earning a living by drawing comics. Occasionally, I take on commercial projects, create short videos, and manage a public account. Although I'm not extremely wealthy, my quality of life is decent. Since I make lifestyle videos, my life skills are pretty good, and I'm also a decent cook. However, I didn't want George to think I had changed too much, so I held back a little. Since I've decided to live a proper life, I'll take it slow and make gradual changes. The next morning, I woke up early to make breakfast. For me, it was just a long-standing habit, but for George, it was downright shocking. His wife had always slept until the sun was high in the sky before getting up, and then it was all about shopping, utterly dull and monotonous. And now, stirring the spoon in my hand, I said naturally, "You're up, breakfast will be ready soon." Oh, George, who had just woken up, had a naturally dazed and adorable look, with his soft hair lying flat on top of his head, appearing gentle and well-behaved. He groggily washed up and obediently sat down at the dining table. I made the congee, and the steamed buns and fried dough sticks were bought from the breakfast shop downstairs. Try them and see if they suit your taste. George picked up the spoon and took a sip, his face full of contentment. Although he didn't say anything, his eyes still showed satisfaction. After the meal, he went out, and I didn't ask too many questions. He had fallen from being a favored child of heaven to the dust in an instant, and it was inevitable that he would suffer the scorn and ridicule of others. As his wife, I still tried my best to give him as much dignity as possible. I continued to work on my career. I opened an account and started drawing. I need to build up a portfolio before I can submit my work. I feel that even though I'm married in this identity, it's not much different from my previous life, and I can still find joy in it. During this time, I checked the second-hand website and was surprised to see that several bags and a few pieces of clothing had sold. There was a buyer in the same city, and I noticed the address wasn't far from me, so I decided to deliver it myself and take a stroll. The buyer was a fashionable modern woman who repeatedly confirmed with me that the bag was authentic. It wasn't until I showed her the shopping records of the cannon fodder that she happily paid. Seeing a substantial amount of money added to my account, I was delighted and planned to treat myself to something nice, but I had only taken a few steps when I saw my so-called husband. George was sitting with several men in suits, eating boxed meals. Though it seemed a bit out of place, he appeared quite composed, even chatting with the people next to him while eating, but I felt a little sorry for him. I remember the novel described him as having the classic traits of a domineering CEO, stomach problems. Takeout food tends to be heavy on oil and salt, so it must be hard for him to eat this, but considering he even eats instant noodles at home, it's clear how much his life has changed. I didn't go up to disturb him, just asked when he would get off work and if he wanted to come home for dinner. After getting a positive response, I got busy again, heading to the market to buy an old hen. When I got home, I bustled around, preparing everything. By the time George came home, the aroma of chicken soup had already filled the entire house. He stared blankly at the lilies on the coffee table, the winter sweet on the TV stand, and the pot hose on the windowsill, looking a bit lost. "You're back. Go wash your hands and get ready to eat." George was clearly more proactive, washing his hands and coming to the kitchen to help me serve the dishes. "Did you make all of this?" I added. "I learned from cooking videos. It wasn't too difficult." I gave him a slight smile. "Not bad, right? Especially good," George praised, his earlobes slightly reddening as he met my smiling face. I felt a surge of amusement, never expecting the villainous male supporting character to be so innocent. I ladled a bowl of soup and handed it to him. "Your stomach isn't in good shape. Have some soup to warm up first. It's so fresh." "I'm glad you like it. I actually really enjoy cooking for others." Every time I receive affirmation from friends, I feel an inexplicable sense of satisfaction. Seeing George eat so happily, I relaxed quite a bit and casually said, "Takeout isn't good for you. Do you want to come home for lunch, or should I bring it to you at noon?" George stared at me in a daze. I smiled and explained, "When I was buying groceries, I saw you eating a boxed meal. You work so hard to earn money, and I wanted to do something within my ability to help." A hint of slyness flashed in George's eyes. "Then I'll have to trouble my wife to bring me meals." His use of the word wife made my hand tremble, nearly dropping my chopsticks, but my flustered reaction only made the amusement in George's eyes grow even more pronounced. He put down his chopsticks, wiped his mouth, and looked at me seriously, saying, "Honey, let's make this work." After the meal, George took the initiative to take on the responsibility of washing the dishes. He probably wasn't used to doing this kind of thing, although the process was a bit clumsy. With my encouraging approach, he managed to get them clean in the end. I picked a strawberry and handed it to him, smiling as I said, "The rule in this house is, whoever cooks doesn't wash the dishes." George ate from my hand, his lips brushing against my fingertips, and I trembled slightly as I pulled my hand back. George seemed not to notice, humming in agreement. I placed the strawberries on the living room coffee table and began organizing the clothes and bags again. By the afternoon, I had sold several more items. I calculated that after selling off this batch of high-end luxury goods, I would have a few $100,000 in hand, enough for a down payment on a small house. George came out after washing the dishes and saw me checking the address with the delivery guy. He silently watched as the delivery guy took my things away, a complex emotion flickering in his eyes. He finally spoke hoarsely, "Honey, what are you doing?" "I sold the bags and clothes I don't use. There's too much of this stuff taking up space, and I don't need them anyway." George's eyes were filled with evident distress. "But didn't you used to love these the most? And we're not at the point where you need to sell your things yet." "I used to like them, but now I feel they're just okay. Honestly, I mainly think they take up space. They're all out-of-season products, and I won't use them anyway. Selling them for money means I can buy something I like more later." "All right, I'll buy you new ones in the future." I thought to myself, these bags cost tens of thousands, which is really beyond my spending habits. But men, after all, have their pride. I smiled and said to him, "All right, I'll wait for you to buy me a new one in the future." George paused for a moment, then came over to help me pack. Until the delivery guy was gone, he suddenly hugged me. wrapped in his masculine scent. I felt a bit stiff and unnatural. Warm breath brushed against my ear. Honey, I'll work hard to earn money, okay? I believe in you. I know you can do it. George seemed to have ignited an inexplicable fighting spirit, spending the entire night holed up in his room doing who knows what. All I could hear was the faint sound of keyboard tapping, but it was good, no decline. No being defeated by difficulties. This was the attitude befitting a former heir to a wealthy family. Early the next morning, I groggily got up to wash up, subconsciously feeling that something was off. The moment I pushed the door open, I was instantly jolted awake. Our eyes met, and awkwardness spread. I slammed the door shut with a bang, muttered, "Sorry, I didn't know someone was in there," and buried myself under the covers, bumping into my so-called husband while he was using the bathroom. How utterly awkward. I was so annoyed. How could I have forgotten that I wasn't living alone? The bathroom door had been left open since last night. I tossed and turned anxiously in bed until a soft chuckle came from the doorway, making me bolt upright instantly. Honey, don't be embarrassed. The house is small, so it's normal for us to run into each other all the time. Or maybe, George teased me mischievously. You're disgusted by me. That's just how men are when they use the bathroom. I smiled awkwardly but politely. Thanks, now please shut up. It was clear that George was in a pretty good mood. Even his back seemed to radiate cheerfulness. What a strange man. I made some wontons, and he ate them happily. After the meal, he curled up on the sofa to watch the news. Aren't you going to work today? Today is the weekend. All right, being self-employed, I really have no concept of weekdays. I continued drawing on my laptop, and George curiously craned his neck to look. You draw really well. I felt a bit proud. This is a commercial commission I took. Like I said, I can earn money to support you. I shared my plans with him while I was painting, and when I mentioned buying a house, his eyes were filled with emotion. George leaned in and hugged me. Darling, how fortunate I am to have married you. I was speechless. It really is a departure from the plot. The villainous male lead actually has feelings for another woman. George hugged me and nuzzled against me. Then suddenly stood up abruptly. What are you doing? Go out and earn money. My wife is working so hard. How can I slack off? George stood up and put on his coat. Honey, please bring me dinner tonight. I'm going to work overtime. I was completely baffled by George's sudden burst of energy. Where's the promised melancholic flower boy? How did his personality become so lively once he deviated from the plot? Complaints aside, in the evening I made a few small dishes, packed them up, and went to George's company to eat together. He's currently working on some online game with a few friends. I don't really understand it, but I know it's completely unrelated to Duncan's previous business. It's a whole new field. I've been here before, so I quickly found George's office, but through the door, I could hear a woman's voice. George, don't be stubborn, accept Jack's help. Seeing you like this really breaks my heart, even if you don't think about yourself. At least consider Heidi. She's a delicate young lady from a wealthy family, yet she's enduring such hardship with you. Doesn't that pain you? With your abilities, why force yourself to stay in this small company? Come work with Jack. We've been friends for years. Do you really think he would treat you unfairly? That soft, gentle voice must belong to the female lead. Jenny, I really don't understand her mindset. She clearly knows that George and her husband Jack are love rivals. Yet she insists on having George work for the male lead. What, does their love not work without the villainous male supporting character and the cannon fodder female supporting character? Are we some kind of lowly people who must become a part of their play? As I was struggling with my thoughts, the voice of George's colleague sounded in my ear. Sis, you're here. Why aren't you coming in? A colleague enthusiastically pushed the door open. Boss, your wife is here again to bring you food. In sight, a man and a woman stood facing each other, looking very well matched. The enthusiastic colleague also sensed the awkward atmosphere and gave an awkward smile. Well, bro, you go ahead with your work. Then, he made a quick escape. I was speechless. I want to run away too. Jenny saw me and naturally acted coquettishly. Heidi, you should also persuade George not to waste his talent in this small place. It breaks my heart. George walked over to me, naturally took the lunchbox from my hands, and calmly said, I'm doing just fine now. No need for you to worry. Jenny's delicate brows furrowed slightly. George, you're just saying that out of anger. Heidi, look at him. I stood calmly beside George and said firmly, I respect my husband's choice. But, George naturally put his arm around me. Is there anything else, Miss Jiang? We're about to have dinner, so it wouldn't be convenient to have you stay. Jenny's beautiful eyes were brimming with tears, looking as if she had suffered a great injustice. She looked on the verge of tears. George, even though I'm married, we can still be friends, right? I'm married too, so I should maintain a proper distance from friends of the opposite sex. Jenny glanced at me and laughed self-deprecatingly. Heidi is still impressive, even without Jack. She has you to protect her. I frowned slightly. Although I knew the female lead was supposed to be delicate and gentle, why did she still give off such a manipulative vibe? George said sternly, how my wife is not for outsiders to comment on. Jenny looked hurt, perhaps not expecting George to stand up for me against her. The power of deviating from the plot is so strong that even the villainous male supporting character's persona has collapsed. Jenny glanced at me unwillingly, then muttered to herself, I know you resent me for marrying him, and you hold a grudge. I understand. Fine, I'll come see you another day. After Jenny left, a trace of annoyance flashed in George's eyes. I wondered, could the plot still have an influence? Honey, there's nothing between her and me, George hurriedly explained to me. I know that, after all, in the novel, you couldn't get the love you wanted, right? Aren't you jealous? How should I answer? I actually feel nothing at all. Forget it, I should still take care of his male ego. Actually, a little. After all, Miss Jiang is still quite outstanding. Honey, you are 1,000 times better than her. In my eyes, you are the best. I was speechless. Thank you. The meal was eaten absent-mindedly. And George kept looking at me as if he wanted to say something but hesitated. I put down my bowl and chopsticks. What's wrong? Just say it directly, George stammered. Do you still think about him? Who is it? Him? Who are you talking about? Jack? Huh? What does the original male lead have to do with me? Right, the cannon fodder had a crush on him, but I have no feelings for him. I just thought he was good-looking and pleasant to the eye back then, but I wouldn't call it liking him. Oh, so you still want to be with him? That was an accident, and besides, in the end, it was with you, wasn't it? So, are you disappointed? Looking at George's conflicted expression, I felt speechless. This supporting male character's personality is really falling apart. I patted his hand and reassured him with a smile. Good thing it's you. George visibly brightened up and ate with much more enthusiasm. What an easy man to please. It wasn't until I got home in the evening that I realized how naive I had been. George took a shower and didn't even put on a shirt, just walked back and forth in front of me. One moment he was pouring a glass of water, the next he was eating a piece of fruit, aggressively making his presence known. His robust physique swayed back and forth before my eyes. Firm muscles, enviable abs, an excessively handsome face. As a normal woman, I naturally blushed and my heart raced. Aren't you cold? A little. How about you give me a hug, honey? I was speechless. I meant, don't you want to put some clothes on? I've washed all my clothes. You did that on purpose. I got up to go to his room to find some clothes when suddenly everything went dark. I screamed and instinctively hugged the person next to me. Don't be scared, the power's out. I know my reaction just now was over the top. I wanted to break free from his embrace. But the firm body in my hands felt so perfect that I couldn't resist secretly giving it a little touch. Satisfied, a devil's whisper sounded by my ear. Oh no, my inner pervert is about to be exposed. Who's better looking, me or Jack? This man has been fussing all night, and it turns out he was waiting for this. You're better looking. Then go check the electric meter quickly. It's pitch black. All right. George placed me on the sofa before going to check. The entire neighborhood has a power outage. The property management just said electricity will be restored in 2 hours. All right. George sat beside me. Thank goodness. He finally put on some clothes. It's just, with such a large sofa, why does he have to squeeze in next to me? Are you afraid of the dark? Not really. Oh, he seems a little disappointed. Darling, shall we have a chat? Lately, I've been having this strange feeling. I feel like myself again. How so? Before, whenever I got close to Jenny, I would always end up doing weird things, as if I were being controlled by something. But today, when I saw her, I didn't feel that way at all. Instead, I found her a bit annoying. this is really deviating from the plot. Even the male supporting character is starting to dislike the female lead. Honey, do you feel that way too? A little, similar to how I feel about Jack, actually. He's not really my type. Then what type do you like? I was speechless. Just live a steady life, someone who looks pleasing to the eye. Then, do I look pleasing to your eye, George? What are you trying to say? Nothing, it's just, I quite like you. I'm speechless at this sudden confession. Thank you. Perhaps the darkness made my senses more sensitive. I could feel George's body temperature rising beside me as he gradually moved closer. His warm breath drew nearer, and his handsome face in the darkness kept getting larger. Suddenly, the lights came on. George and I locked eyes, both feeling a bit awkward. George was extremely annoyed. Didn't they say the power would be out for 2 hours? I covered my mouth and chuckled. Well, good night. I decisively slipped away and retreated to my room. Oh no, oh no. I almost fell for the handsome man's trick. George has been acting very strange lately, like a peacock flaunting its feathers, constantly trying to show off his charm, although he's already 100% charming without even trying. When he puts in the effort, I'm completely defenseless. He always takes every opportunity to hug and kiss me, but having been single for over 20 years, it's really hard for me to remain unaffected by such a charming person. I always feel like it won't be long before he completely sweeps me off my feet, but as we spent more time together, I gradually found George to be quite adorable, and I found myself willing to indulge him. That day, he insisted on wanting to eat sweet and sour pork ribs. So I went downstairs to the market to buy some. On my way back, I ran into someone I really dislike. Heidi, it's really you. I thought I was mistaken. How have you ended up looking like an old lady? The man looked at the bags in my hands with disdain. You really can't make ends meet, can you? You've turned into a housekeeper. I stared for a long time before barely remembering who this person was. Apparently, my younger brother. In a family like the Andersons, familial bonds are truly weak. I am the child of my father's ex-wife, and later his mother took her place, which is how he came to be. Of course, there are also various other illegitimate children in the family. The Anderson family's style is that all sons are considered as potential heirs, while all daughters are merely tools for marriage alliances. This younger brother, because his mother holds the position of the legal wife, is extremely arrogant and has never taken me seriously. Now that he sees me in this state, he is even more determined to mock me relentlessly. I found his repetitive taunts utterly boring. Are you done? If you're done, move aside and don't block the way. The moment Tom saw my attitude, he immediately started cursing and grumbling in displeasure. Heidi, do you still think you're the young lady of the Anderson family? You were kicked out of the Anderson family long ago, and now you dare to boss me around. Who do you think you are? I think you should hurry up and divorce that useless George. While you still have some looks left, quickly find a rich man to marry. That way, you can still be of some use to the Anderson family, instead of ending up like this, turning into a useless old hag ahead of time. Have you said enough? If I don't stop you, you really think you're something? I glared coldly at Tom. What right do you have to talk about George? You're not even worthy of a single strand of his hair. What skills do you have? You're nothing but a second-generation heir who flaunts the Anderson family's power. Without the Anderson family, you're nothing. George may be down on his luck now, but he works hard and strives to improve. He will definitely make a comeback. And you, without the Anderson family, you're just a useless waste. Heidi, how dare you insult me? He raised his fist and charged at me. I froze for a moment, watching the fist come toward me. Just as I was about to dodge, a figure stepped in front of me. That person grabbed Tom's wrist, kicked him hard, and with a clever twist of force, threw him to the ground. Watching Tom fall flat on his face, I laughed heartily. I took the initiative to link arms with George. Honey, you're amazing. It's only right to protect my wife. George was very happy, straightening his back a little more. He coldly warned Tom, who was grimacing on the ground, stay away from my wife. If you dare harass her again, I'll beat you up every time I see you. After saying that, he took the bags from my hands and led me away. Are you hurt? Good thing I came down. I'm fine. Tom is all bark and no bite. I might not have lost even if we fought. It's all my fault. What does this have to do with you? George looked at me with a complicated expression and sighed quietly. It's fine. It'll be over soon. What? It's fine, I'll help you. Over these days, we've become more and more in sync. I cook, he assists, he washes the dishes, I tidy up the kitchen. I even started to think that living like this wouldn't be so bad. After dinner, George slipped me a card. Here's some of my savings. Honey, buy a car. I can't bear to see you carrying heavy bags back and forth. I was speechless, but the market is right next to our neighborhood, and driving, it's hard to find parking. I looked into George's puppy dog eyes. All right, I'll keep it for now as our house fund. We can hold off on buying a car for a bit, even though I have a license. I'm not very good at driving. Honey, you don't need to worry about saving money for me. I've been working hard to earn more. My new game is about to launch, and soon you'll be able to buy bags again. All right, to be honest, I'm not that into buying bags. But it seems to be his obsession, with two people working hard. Life will always get better. That day, as usual, I went to George's company to bring him lunch. As soon as I entered, I ran into someone familiar. Wasn't that my cheap dad with Tom? What were they doing here? Could it be that after Tom got beaten up that day, he went home and complained, bringing his parents to help him out? What kind of childish behavior is this from elementary school kids? Complaints aside, I'm actually quite worried about George. Especially since he's not the same as he used to be. Although the Anderson family is a mess, they've been entrenched for years and have some resources. If George, who has nothing, goes up against them, I'm afraid he'll be at a disadvantage. I couldn't hear what was being said inside, but seeing Mr. Anderson getting emotional, I was afraid he might do something impulsive, so I rushed in without a second thought. I stand in front of George. What are you trying to do? If you have any issues, come at me, don't hurt him. As the words fell, the entire office fell silent for 3 seconds. George laughed and wrapped his arm around my waist. Honey, Director Anderson is here to discuss business. Oh, I feel a bit awkward. Then you, continue talking. I tried to slip away, but George held me tightly. Little Anderson is always here to apologize. Apologize? Tom glared at me with a face full of resentment and unwillingness. Until Mr. Anderson mercilessly gave him a knock on the head. Only then did he reluctantly say, Sister, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have spoken recklessly and insulted you and brother-in-law that day. I was speechless. What's going on? Has this world turned into a fantasy? Mr. Anderson approached me with a flattering smile. Oh, Heidi, we're all family. You shouldn't take Tom's behavior to heart. I looked at Mr. Anderson with a cold expression, but my mind was in complete chaos. Mr. Anderson pressed on. Now that you and Mr. Duncan are so close, I'm really happy to see it. Could you talk to Mr. Duncan for your father and ask him to give the North City project to the Anderson family? Chairman, my wife and I are about to have dinner. Let's discuss this another day. See our guest out. It wasn't until Assistant Leo cleared the room, leaving only George and me in the office, that I snapped back to reality. Hadn't George gone bankrupt? But why would Mr. Anderson, who always fawns over the powerful and bullies the weak, still be bowing and scraping to him? George avoided my scrutinizing gaze and lavished exaggerated praise on the dishes in the thermal lunchbox. Wow, today's menu includes sweet and sour mandarin fish, mapo tofu, stir-fried pork, and cushion carp soup. My wife's cooking is absolutely amazing. I sat across from him and said sternly, George, leniency for those who confess, severity for those who resist. What do I need to confess? You're not bankrupt. I am indeed bankrupt. But, George glanced at me, but the Duncan family has so many businesses, it's only natural that some outdated ones would go bankrupt. What about now? Now there are still some emerging industries. George, so you're actually not poor. I suppose you could say I'm not poor. We did sell the old house during the asset liquidation, but the new estate hasn't been renovated yet, right? I sneered coldly. So that's why you were in such a hurry to divorce me. You had a backup plan all along. I didn't. I don't. Stop making things up. George cautiously looked at me. Honey, you were the one who wanted a divorce back then. Don't change the subject. Just confess your own issues honestly. What issues do I have? Figure it out yourself. George was thinking very seriously, then confessed one by one. The house we're living in now isn't rented. I bought it before. It's closer to the new company. What else? And also, I rarely eat instant noodles. I think it's okay to have them occasionally, but instant noodles are definitely not as good as the meals my wife makes. Then why did you order takeout back then, and even eat on the roadside? The takeout was from Ding Yuan's place. I was in a hurry at the time. Ding Yuan, that restaurant that doesn't deliver for orders under 1,000. What am I even feeling sorry for him about? What else? The company is about to go public soon, so it's more convenient to live around here. The card I gave you earlier should have 20 million in spending money, so maybe buy a few more bags. Oh my god, this is clearly a hidden big shot. And here I was thinking about scrimping and saving to support him. Suddenly, I feel like a complete joke. I stood up angrily, ready to leave. I couldn't tell whether I was more angry or embarrassed by my own overthinking. George rushed over and hugged me. Honey, don't be mad. You can't dislike me just because I have money. I was speechless. Forget it. I should calm down first. Returning to our little home, everything here feels different to me now. It's also my fault for being naive. A century-old family like the Duncans couldn't possibly collapse so easily. Their high-profile announcement of bankruptcy must have had some other purpose. These rich people, their schemes are more intricate than the eye of a needle. But when I calmed down, aside from hiding his wealth, George didn't seem to have done anything else to wrong me, and the idea that he was poor was mostly something I imagined myself. After I arrived, he treated me really well. He took the initiative to wash dishes and clean. When appliances broke, he would help fix them. And knowing I liked lilies, he always bought them for me. He even remembered my menstrual cycle, reminded me not to eat spicy or cold foods, and took the initiative to go out and pack my favorite dishes. You can fake being poor, but his kindness towards me feels so genuine. I feel a bit annoyed. Heidi, admit it, you've liked him for a long time, whether it was the melancholic and fragile version of him earlier, or the flamboyant and tsundere version later on. George has long been integrated into every aspect of my life. I don't consider myself a sentimental person, so once I figured things out, I stopped dwelling on them. I prepared a table full of dishes, intending to have a heart-to-heart talk with George, but when dinner time came, George still hadn't returned. I worried that he might still be afraid I was angry, so I took the initiative to go out and look for him. I hadn't even reached the entrance of the neighborhood when I spotted George. He was holding lilies in his hand, with Jenny in his arms. A bitter smile crossed my face. It seems the malicious male supporting character still couldn't break free from the plot. George, let's be together. I've realized Jack isn't my true love. You are. We grew up together, childhood sweethearts. I remember everything you've done for me and all the kindness you've shown. You have feelings for me too, don't you? Look, you even remembered that I love lilies. I was speechless. My ears were ringing, and I couldn't hear the rest of what was said. I smiled self-deprecatingly. Heidi, oh Heidi, not only do you like to imagine things, but you also like to assume too much. I turned around and went home expressionlessly, though my eyes were a bit moist. Not long after, George came back. He glanced at the table full of dishes and me sitting on the sofa, his face full of joy. Honey, I bought your favorite lilies. I glanced at the delicate lilies in his hand and said calmly, I don't like oriental lilies. The one who likes them is someone else. George froze for a moment before snapping back to reality. These are double lilies, not oriental lilies. I know what you like, and I know who I like even better. I felt a bit hurt. Then why did you hug her? Didn't you say you don't like her anymore? George knelt on one knee in front of me, looking utterly aggrieved. I swear, honey. She suddenly rushed over and hugged me, babbling nonsense for ages. With one hand holding the flowers and the other carrying the pastries, I really didn't have a free hand to push her away. I'm sorry, honey, I should have immediately dropped everything and pushed her away. I shouldn't have let her taint me. I was amused by George's explanation. Don't be mad, honey, how about you give me a hug to help disinfect me? As he said this, he hugged me and rubbed against me. All right, let's eat first. The food is getting cold, as you wish, after dinner. We sat on the sofa and chatted. Actually, I didn't mean to hide it from you, but the you back then and the you now are completely different. I thought to myself, he wasn't wrong. My change was so obvious that anyone would be suspicious. Then do you prefer the old me or the current me? To be honest, I don't have much of an impression of the old you, but I really like the current you. George looked into the distance and murmured softly, sometimes I wonder why I like Jenny. It seems that when I was young and my family was busy, she would bring her mother's home-cooked meals to keep me company. Rather than saying I like her, it's more accurate to say I like the feeling of having someone by my side, someone who cares, the warmth of home. Over time, it became an obsession. Back then, I was strange and obsessive, but after meeting you, I felt like I could finally be myself. It's as if I'm no longer a supporting character in someone else's story, but the protagonist of my own life. It's a bit embarrassing to admit, but when I was a child, my diet was strictly controlled. The meals were delicious, but they lacked a sense of warmth, and I wasn't allowed to eat snacks. Yet every time I eat the food you make, I feel so warm and happy. Honey, that day when you told me we should live our lives well together, I was truly moved. I know for sure that this is the life I've always wanted. George's confession moved me, but even so, I couldn't help saying, what you like is my concern, my care, the sense of family I give you. If it were someone else, it wouldn't be. George affirmed, you're different from them. This bankruptcy was also an opportunity to see people's true colors. You showed me your value. I was just lucky to pass your test. You will definitely pass. Our Heidi is a resilient diamond, destined to shine. Heidi, let's live well together. I will treat you right. As he spoke, he leaned in and embraced me, showering me with gentle, lingering kisses. George's kisses were intoxicating. By the time I came to my senses, I was already pinned to the bed, tangled up in a whirlwind of passion. That bastard. I still let him have his way with me. George and I broke through the barriers and became more inseparable than ever. I gradually realized that his previous gentlemanly demeanor, politeness, and courtesy were all just an act. The day after we consummated our marriage, he couldn't wait to move into my room and even complained with a pitiful tone that I had neglected him for too long and hadn't fulfilled his reasonable needs as a husband. The result is that he naturally did this and that with me. I was truly worn out by his antics and had no energy left to be upset. Patting the head of the person on top of me, I encouraged him, honey, focus on making money. I'm still waiting for you to buy me a bag. George clung to me, planting sticky kisses, and grinned slyly. Don't worry, all my money is for buying you bags. But before that, I still want to have you first. I was speechless. Our life together was as sweet as honey, but things weren't going so well for the male and female leads. That day, I actually ran into Jack, the legendary male lead. He is indeed quite handsome, but definitely not my type. Heidi, how are you and George doing? Very well, you don't need to pretend. I know your difficulties. I'm not pretending, and don't you make assumptions. Just tell me what you want. Jack sighed. Jenny wants to divorce me. What does that have to do with me? Let's be together. Are you crazy? The main couple really have some issues, without supporting characters to spice up their lives. Do they have to stir up trouble just because it's dull and boring? Are George and I some kind of cheap people? Heidi, as Jack took a step toward me, I quickly stepped back. First, I'm already married, and I love my husband very much. Second, you're married too, so please stay away from me. Third, if you harass me again, I'll have no choice but to call the police. After saying that, I ran off as fast as I could, seeing me come home panting. George looked a bit worried. Honey, what's wrong? Nothing, nothing. I just ran into a crazy person and was afraid they'd try to scam me. Luckily, I ran fast. George smiled and poured me a glass of water. Jack and Jenny are getting a divorce recently, those two lunatics. Why? I took a sip of water to moisten my throat. Weren't they madly in love? Perhaps, without the meddling of the malicious male supporting character and the cannon fodder female supporting character, their sweet life would become dull. I was speechless. It really is a case of being unable to settle for peace after living a life full of drama, isn't it? I shook my head speechlessly, not agreeing with their outlook on life. In my view, the essence of life is to continue loving it even after it returns to tranquility. But, I looked at George with great interest. What, is someone coming to get back together with you today? There was, but I refused. This time, I definitely didn't let her get within a meter of me. Really, of course it's true. George said to me seriously. I told her, I only have one life, and I can't generously give it to someone I don't love. A little touched, George leaned in to kiss me. Honey, we keep running into strange people here. Maybe we should leave for a while. I've started a new business in T-City. How about we go stay there for a bit? I'm fine with that. I work freelance anyway, so I can go anywhere. I'll follow your lead. George smiled and carried me back to the bedroom. I don't care about the story of the male and female leads, now we just need to write our own story well. After hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. My mother is the female protagonist in the novel who ran away pregnant 99 times. She is soft and pitiful, bullied by everyone, and only I am her support. I am naturally intelligent and can easily slap the faces of the villains, but why should I help my mother? During her process of running away for love, I couldn't eat enough, couldn't go to school, couldn't go to the hospital when I was sick, and even when I was kidnapped by villains, my father would only save my panicked mother first, completely ignoring me, who was on the verge of death. I don't want parents who only have love in their eyes anymore. It's so cold. I exhaled a breath of scorching air, feeling as if an invisible pair of hands were squeezing my chest tightly, making it hard for me to breathe. Mom, feel terrible. Using all my strength, I trembled my lips and whispered words that could barely form a coherent sentence. Grace, please bear with it a little longer. Your father has sealed off the entire city to find us, and Mom has no way to take you to the hospital. Mom was extremely pure and beautiful. With deer-like sparkling eyes filled with tears, she looked at me with guilt, and finally couldn't help but rest her head on my shoulder, her tears soaking through my thin clothes. It felt sticky and uncomfortable. It's all because Mom is useless, making my Grace suffer. From the moment I became conscious, I knew my mother Mia was an incredibly delicate woman. No matter what happened, she would cry in a pitiful and heart-wrenching way. She would cry when she encountered bugs. Cry when my father George ignored her, cry when there was no money, and even cry when others gave her money. Her tears never seemed to dry, evoking both helplessness and pity. Even at times like these, I had to muster the strength in my frail, young body to comfort her. Mom, I'm not in pain anymore. Please don't cry. I raised my small, scraped-up hand and wiped the corner of her eye. These scrapes had been on my body for a long time, every time Mom took me on the run. I couldn't keep up with her pace and would fall hard several times. It wasn't that Mom hadn't thought of carrying me while escaping, but she was too frail to lift me, a 5-year-old, and even if she managed, she could barely move. I matured early, or as adults would say, I had a high IQ. I thought, Mom had already suffered so much, and as her precious daughter, I shouldn't cause her any more trouble, so these big and small scrapes, like the cocoons of transformation, have enveloped my growth. Often before the old ones have healed, new ones have already formed. At this moment, we were hiding in an unfamiliar alley. The rain was pouring down, the moisture dampening my face. My head was throbbing as I quietly listened to the sound of the rain. You must be George's woman and child, right? Ha 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 ha. I can't believe I actually found you. A menacing, burly man kicked over a trash can, creating a startling commotion. My nerves were on edge, and I immediately wanted to take my mother and run, but she seemed to be frozen in fear, her eyes wide and her hand covering her mouth, trembling as she curled up in the corner. Who are you? Stay away. Her vulnerability undoubtedly provoked the malicious-looking man. He stretched out his tattoo-covered hand and ruthlessly lunged at us. If I were healthy at that moment, I would have had countless ways to escape with my mother. But now I've been running a fever for 2 days straight, without taking any medicine, without eating any food, only drinking a few drops of rainwater. I feel weak all over, and every movement feels like countless knives stabbing into me. I could only push hard on my mother's shoulder, hoping she would get up quickly and run away, even if it meant leaving me behind. But my mother, who was so good at running away, seemed to have forgotten her talent at that moment. She held my wrist tightly until we were plunged into darkness. George, your wife and child are in our hands. 5 million in ransom, not a penny more, not a penny less. Bring it to us in a suitcase, and I'll be merciful enough to spare their lives. If you don't come, well, I can't guarantee whether they'll live or die. When my mother and I regained our sight, we had already been kidnapped and taken to a remote factory building. The fierce man covered in tattoos was now on the phone, and beside him stood 3 or 5 other men with a thuggish demeanor. It was clear that this was a premeditated group crime. George is my father, the CEO of the Green Group. At a young age, he has amassed considerable wealth. and many aunts and sisters are fond of him, but dad only loves mom. I've seen them kiss openly more than once. Every time I see it, mom's face turns as red as a rose. She gives dad a light tap, and dad, who is usually so aloof, breaks into a smile. In my small world, they were sometimes very loving, but most of the time they argued. Dad said mom was being unreasonable, and mom said dad didn't care about her at all. In the end, mom would take my hand and leave the castle-like house. I was in a daze, with countless fragments flashing through my mind, most of them about my mom and dad. Boss, this kid's face is all red. It looks like she's sick. Should we give her some medicine? A man with an explosive yellow-dyed head of hair crouched in front of me. There was a hint of pity in his eyes as he looked at me. Don't meddle in other people's business. It's perfect that she's quiet and not causing any trouble now. Once George sends the money over, we'll be rich. We can go abroad and live a life of luxury. Upon hearing the leader's words, the uncle with the afro still couldn't hold back. He picked up a bottle of sports energy drink and gave me a few sips. Boss, we absolutely can't let this kid die before the money arrives, he explained. Because of my illness, there was always a strange taste in my mouth, but as soon as I tasted the sweet drink, I couldn't help but gulp down a few mouthfuls. Mia seemed to have finally tapped into some maternal instinct, as she abruptly pulled me into her arms and glared at the group with hostility. Grace, don't drink their stuff, who knows if it's poisoned. Her movement was so sudden that I choked, my tiny chest heaving up and down for a long time before it finally settled. If you don't appreciate kindness, suit yourself. I closed my eyes, leaning uncomfortably against my mother's embrace. For some reason, my heart felt hollow and heavy. At that time, I didn't yet understand that this feeling was called despair. Not long after, my father, dressed in a suit, walked into the warehouse carrying several cases. The money is all here. Hand over the goods, and I'll hand over the money. The kidnapper's eyes darted. I've changed my mind. The 5 million is only the ransom for one person. The other one will stay as our hostage until we fly abroad. Then you'll have to pay another 5 million in ransom before I release them. George, now, do you want to ransom your wife or your daughter? He pressed the knife against my and my mother's necks, and with a slight movement, a trickle of blood seeped out. I didn't hesitate to step in front of my mother and got my neck slashed. Ransom her first. George's pupils contracted. And without hesitation, he pointed at my mother. Mia, the leader pushed my mother out. He grabbed me by the neck and lifted me up like a helpless chick. His gaze towards me carried a hint of pity. I coughed a few times, my usually clear mind feeling muddled and dazed. Even with the noise from outside, I couldn't muster any reaction. Before the kidnappers could act arrogantly for long, a group of professionals in uniform, armed with weapons, surrounded the warehouse and blocked their escape routes. Take action, George gave the order, with no intention of letting these kidnappers get away with their crimes. At the end of the conflict, I lay alone on the ground, watching from a distance as Dad held my frightened mother in his arms, comforting her in a soft whisper. They clung tightly to each other, their eyes seemingly only for one another. Yet, not long before, Mom had been trying every possible way to escape Dad. I couldn't understand it. In the final moments before I completely lost consciousness, I thought to myself, it wasn't that Dad chose to abandon me, but that he had never chosen me in the first place. To them, I didn't matter. As I drifted in and out of consciousness, vivid images flashed before my eyes. Mom and Dad were like two tangled threads, impossible to cut apart, impossible to sort out. Love, arguments, running away, being found, apologizing, forgiving, and loving again. It was like an endless loop, repeating over and over before my eyes. I watched as Mom's belly went from flat to round, then flat again, and every time she ran away, I was there by her side. I grew from a tiny, chubby-cheeked baby into an adult, gradually revealing my talents. Whenever someone looked down on my mom, I would step forward, flaunting my extraordinary intelligence and slapping those bullies right in the face with it. Mom says I am her genius baby. Through my continuous efforts, I finally cleared all the obstacles for Mom and Dad's relationship and gained a happy, perfect family like in a fairy tale. I don't know if these scenes are my imagination or the real future. I only know that having an ordinary, stable family is so difficult for me. I opened my eyes to see Mom leaning over the bedside, crying and blaming everything on Dad. Dad gently patted her shoulder, helplessly accepting all the complaints. None of them noticed that I was awake, and I didn't make a sound. Just stared at them blankly. The love between Mom and Dad was tumultuous and widely known, but they failed to notice a tender young sprout in the corner, waiting all along for the nourishment of their love. No one spared me a second glance. Their eyes were only for each other. Yet, Mom's escape seemed endless, and so was Dad's pursuit. If I had to grow up in such a turbulent and unstable environment, I would rather not have these parents who only have eyes for love. Because this time I fell seriously ill, my mother, for once, did not plan to run away again and instead stayed peacefully at the Green family's home for a while. My grandmother has always disliked my mother, saying she was a commoner who tried to trap a nobleman and gave birth to a bastard just to climb the social ladder. So, out of hatred for my mother and a preference for sons over daughters, my grandmother also disliked me. During the time at the Green family's ancestral home, Grandma kept finding fault with Mom, making her do servants' work and deliberately making things difficult to embarrass her. Mom was always so upset that she couldn't stop wiping away tears. Mia, no matter how glamorous you dress up, you can't hide the poor taste in your bones. Tonight, the Green family is hosting a banquet. Mom is wearing an expensive gown and looks absolutely stunning, but when Grandma saw her, she covered her nose, rolled her eyes, and her sharp voice was unbearably piercing. In the past, at times like this, I would step forward with my small frame, stand in front of Mom, and publicly defend her, leaving Grandma embarrassed and unable to save face. But this time, looking at my mother's expectant eyes, I turned and walked away. Grace. My mother called out my name helplessly, like a drowning child clinging to me as her lifeline, so I turned back and said to my mother, word for word, Mom, the book says, you should handle your own matters. Let the adults resolve their conflicts. Children shouldn't interfere. I hadn't been back at the Green families for long, and it was only on and off, so I absorbed knowledge like a sponge. The more I learned, the more I realized how foolish my mother was. She only knows how to cry and run away, passively accepting everything others do to her, whether it's harm or help, like a piece of wood, never resisting at all. She only takes initiative for one person, and that is my father. Mia, hearing my words, wanted to say something but found herself unable to refute. She looked at me, silently crying, hoping I would soften toward her as I had before and help her deal with her enemies. I lowered my eyes and left without giving her another glance. Grandma said more heart-wrenching words, and even the approaching servants would chime in with a few remarks. Everyone looked down on her. Mom's suppressed sobs grew louder and louder. I covered my ears and ran faster and faster. By the time the banquet began, Mom's eyes were still red. When she saw me in my formal dress, instead of taking my hand, she turned her face away directly. Mom held onto Dad's arm, a perfect match of talent and beauty, like a pair of jade ornaments. Neither of them noticed how difficult it was for me, with my short legs, to keep up with their pace. I slowed my pace and simply stopped following behind them. From my perspective, the banquet hall was filled with people's legs coming and going. Everyone had their own circle of conversation, and as a child, I simply couldn't blend in. Even the exquisite pastries were placed on high display stands, completely out of my reach due to my height. I stood on my tiptoes, tentatively gauging the distance, and then decisively gave up. Here, little one. Is this what you wanted? A gentle voice sounded beside me as a woman in a blue dress took down a small cake and placed it in my hand. I nodded and politely said thank you, but before I could take a bite of the hard-earned cake, a gust of wind rushed to my side, and with a smack, it hit my hand, accompanied by a frantic scream. Rocher, how could you eat what she gave you? It was the first time Mia had shown such an angry and resentful expression towards me. Miss Rocher, there's no need to be so angry, is there? I just gave your daughter a piece of cake. Even if I was once engaged to George, that's all in the past now. You don't need to hold on to it so much. Look, you've scared your daughter. Hearing the woman's words, my pupils contracted, and I instantly understood her identity. She was my father's former fiancée, Winnie, the eldest daughter of the Kim group. Her political marriage with George was once viewed favorably by everyone, considered an unbreakable alliance, but all of this fell apart because of my mother's sudden departure. I still remember countless nights when my mother held me, silently shedding tears while murmuring, Grace, he's going to marry another woman. He doesn't want us anymore. Maybe it's for the best. Let's run away and leave him behind too. Okay, no wonder Mom had such a terrifying expression. I looked down at the messy remains of the cake on the floor, feeling a pang of regret. This is my daughter. So there's no need for Miss Winnie to trouble yourself. In front of her rival, Mom was uncharacteristically assertive. She lifted her chin and gripped my hand so tightly that she didn't even notice her beautifully manicured nails had scratched my skin. If it were the old me, I would definitely have tolerated all of my mother's actions, and might even have helped her attack her rival. But now, I no longer want to endure it, so I did something that took everyone by surprise. I forcefully shook off my mother's hand, and as I looked into her disbelieving eyes, I took a step back. Grace, how could you let go of Mom's hand? Do you even think Mom isn't good enough for Dad, that only this woman is worthy of your father? Is that it? The more she spoke, the more hysterical Mom's tone became. Once her love was questioned, her gentle nature would turn her into an irrational madwoman. I don't feel that way, I said calmly. Everyone had noticed the commotion in this corner. George walked over, his expression stern, the wrinkles between his brows deep enough to trap a fly. Mia, what are you making a fuss about again? Winnie crossed her arms and leaned to the side, wearing an expression of someone ready to enjoy the show. She even had the mood to joke with me. Kid, watch closely. Your mom is about to go all out again. I remained silent. I'm making a fuss, George, in your eyes. Do I only know how to be unreasonable? Enough already. My mom, Mia, is a truly remarkable person. In front of others, she's like a piece of clay that anyone can shape, but when she's with George, she instantly transforms into a full-on beast. What's enough? I haven't done anything, yet you're slandering me. Since you hate me so much, why don't you just go marry your ex-fiancé? Go have children with that woman. Why do you want to have children with me? I have witnessed this kind of argument countless times, far more accustomed to it than Winnie. Winnie handed me another small cake, and this time, my mother didn't knock it away. I finally got to taste it as I wished. It wasn't sweet at all. It was salty, it was bitter, and it didn't taste good. Mom is going to run away again. She was crying while packing her clothes. I handed her ID card and some cash to her. Even though I was only 5 years old, I was already all too familiar with this routine. Grace, your father is such a scumbag. He doesn't care about our feelings at all. If we stay with him, we'll be bullied to death sooner or later. Mia was crying her heart out, but her repeated words no longer stirred any reaction in me. When we reached the entrance of the ancestral home, I stopped and watched my mother's furtive figure, whispering, Mom, I don't want to run away with you anymore. Mia looked down at me in disbelief. What are you saying? Are you going to abandon me too, Mom? I want to live a normal life like other children. I want to go to school, have 3 meals a day, take medicine when I'm sick, and have a roof over my head when it rains. I don't want to live a life of constant wandering and exile anymore. I lifted my head and spoke the words I had long prepared with determination. But Mom wouldn't listen to what I was saying. She looked utterly desperate and was crying helplessly again. Did you see Winnie today and think she's more suitable to be your mom than I am? Is that why you don't want me anymore? But Grace, if it weren't for you, I would have escaped from George long ago. I've sacrificed so much for you, and now you're going to betray me, Mia muttered to herself. I never expected that the precious daughter I worked so hard to raise would turn out to be an ungrateful wretch, a traitor. My mother's accusations were sharper than knives, each one stabbing into my heart, making my tears fall uncontrollably. I wanted to explain, but deep down I knew that no matter what I said, my mother would only believe her own version of the truth. Fine, if you don't want me as your mother anymore, then I don't want you as my daughter either. From now on, we are strangers. Mia wiped away her tears, her expression growing even more resolute. She pushed my hand away and, without looking back, walked off with her luggage. I was shoved hard and fell, scraping my palm once again. Tears soaked the wound, sharp with pain. This was the last time I would ever get a scrape. I dried my tears and made a silent vow to myself. The drama of running away with the baby was still unfolding. My mother had completely abandoned me, and my father was utterly indifferent, assigning me a few nannies before washing his hands of me. Breaking ties with my parents is always extremely painful. In the middle of the night, I often dream of my mother, her gentleness, her pain, her accusations, but I never once thought of apologizing to her and returning to that turbulent life of constant fleeing and being caught again. At the very least, the Green family can provide me with many resources, allowing me to grow rapidly, so, even if there is no love, it doesn't matter. What one gains and what one loses are always be looked at. I can only console myself with this thought. Time flew by, and this time, Mom had been gone for much longer, a full 8 years without any news. Dad was nearly driven mad with worry. He even thought of using me as bait to lure Mom out, but it was all in vain. Only I knew that, just like Dad didn't love me, Mom didn't love me either. She wouldn't come back for me. But I truly never imagined that when Mom was found again, there would be a 7 or 8-year-old boy by her side. His features looked so much like Dad's. It was clear at a glance that he was their son. So Your Grace, the one who betrayed Mom, perhaps learning from my lesson, Mom raised Charles extremely well, with a chubby face and baby fat. Even when he makes an angry expression, it only makes people exclaim how adorable he is. It's completely unlike when I was little, often hungry, thin, and small. Humph. We came back this time just to teach you a lesson. How dare you bully my mommy back then? Mia stood by, elegant and poised, not refuting Charles's words at all. After all these years, seeing her again, I no longer feel that heart-wrenching pain. It's as if I'm looking at a stranger. My heart is as calm as still water. I have grown up and finally understood something that I could never figure out as a child. In the eyes of Mia and George, I was never their daughter. Instead, I was just a tool they used to manipulate each other, a pawn in their game of chase and escape. Even the arrogant Charles in front of me is nothing but a tool, just another one with a gender advantage over me. But this time, Mia hit it even better. I glanced at him with a hint of sympathy. Charles was instantly provoked by my gaze. What's with that look? Let me tell you, now that I'm back, you're nothing in the Green family. Once I inherit the family business, the first thing I'll do is kick you out. Mia curled her lips into a smile, seemingly pleased at the thought of me being kicked out. Charles is George's only son. According to tradition, he will inherit the family business and the company, so it would be effortless for him to kick me out. You won't inherit it, I said calmly, my tone indifferent. By the way, I'm no longer called Grace, I'm Grace Green now, due to Mia's ridiculous insistence. All her children bear her surname, Miller. My decision to change my surname is undoubtedly a slap in her face. Mia's face instantly darkened. Why won't I inherit? I am father's only son. Charles lifted his face proudly. Because I hold 30% of the shares in the Green Group. The Green family is now under my control. I dropped a bombshell out of nowhere, and only when I saw the shocked expressions on Mia and Charles's faces did I slightly curl the corners of my mouth, revealing a hint of pleasure. All these years, I haven't been idling away in the Green family for nothing, and the nickname, Genius, wasn't given to me for no reason. At first, I just used some of my pocket money to trade stocks, successfully turning the stock market upside down. Everyone was trying to figure out who this unexpectedly successful stock prodigy was. But no one could have imagined that the mastermind behind it all was just a kid who hadn't even grown all his baby teeth yet, after securing a substantial amount of initial capital. I began systematically acquiring scattered shares of the Green Group and established an internet company. Using my hacking skills, I quickly emerged as a dark horse in the industry. George was disheartened by a failed romance and remained in a slump for quite some time. It was during this period that I approached him with my request to join the company. Perhaps it was because I was Mia's child, or maybe because my reputation as a prodigy had spread far and wide, or even because the achievements I had made were simply too astonishing. In any case, George didn't underestimate me or think that I was too young, just a teenager, to handle such a significant responsibility. He agreed to my request, and my good performance gradually made him delegate more authority, shifting his focus to finding Mia, which gave me a lot of room to maneuver. By the time I was 16, I had already secured my position as the heir of the Green family through my own methods. Sorry, you're too late, I said politely. No, how is that possible? You're just a girl. Your grandmother would never agree. Mia's face twisted in agony upon hearing the news of me becoming the heir, as if the sky had fallen. Seeing her expression, I sighed inwardly. It seems that refusing to run away with her back then made her hold a grudge against me. She simply couldn't stand to see me doing well, even though I am her own daughter, no matter how much grandma dislikes me. She wouldn't refuse to let the Green family thrive. After all, the more capable and outstanding I am, the more dividends she'll receive at the end of the year. It's too early to say for sure. You've only achieved all this because Charles isn't here. Now that Charles has returned with me, your days of ease are numbered. After all, my Charles is an unparalleled genius. Whatever you can do, he can surely do as well. Mia tidied up her expression and looked at Charles with great pride in her eyes. I don't know what she has been through over the years to make her hate me so much, but I no longer care. Years of forging ahead alone have taught me that the only thing that truly matters in this world is the benefits you can grasp in your hands. If they dare to make a move against me, I will definitely not hold back. Not long after they returned, Mia began whispering in George's ear. This tactic was very effective, especially since George had lost her for so many years and was now completely devoted to her. Charles also demonstrated extraordinary abilities, skipping grades, having a photographic memory, and grasping concepts instantly. Skills that ordinary people lack were a piece of cake for him. He is still young now, and as he grows older, his potential will be limitless, compared to my cold and aloof granddaughter. Grandma clearly prefers the lively and adorable Charles, and she has started to waver. Under their combined tactics, George began to take action. He joined forces with the shareholders, convened a shareholders meeting, aiming to directly remove me from my position, and even tried to use his status to reclaim all the shares. Under the scrutiny of many malicious gazes, I reluctantly stood up, my tone still calm and unhurried, exuding a composed and self-assured demeanor as if I had everything under control. Since you all want me to leave Green Corporation so badly, I'll grant your wish. Upon hearing my words, everyone was stunned. They hadn't expected that after launching their big move, I would accept it completely without any resistance. After signing the document, I pushed back my chair and left as if nothing had happened. Following me out were several key personnel. They were the indispensable parts of Green Corporation's operations, and it wouldn't be an exaggeration to call them the core. Wait, why are you all leaving too? George quickly spoke up, a bad feeling creeping into his heart. Of course, it's because they all work for me. I'm their boss. What's wrong with employees following their boss? I turned my head to answer for them and flashed a provocative smile. Originally, I didn't want to go this far, but you forced my hand, so blame yourselves for this. Since Mia returned, I knew she was up to something, so I had already planned to short Green Corp. By taking these key members away, Green Corp would become an empty shell, a chaotic and disordered one at that. Meanwhile, I could turn around and establish a new Green Corp that belongs to me, which I named Shifang. I used Shifang to ruthlessly seize Green Corp's resources, cut off their cash flow, and turned that behemoth into a graveyard overnight. The shares I was forced to sign away all became worthless scraps of paper. Behemoths often require substantial funds to keep operations running, so once a break occurs, they instantly incur massive debt. I saw everything in the Green family being taken by the court to repay debts, including the ancestral home. Mia, George, Charles, and others stood there in a daze, as if they couldn't understand why things had suddenly turned out this way. In Mia's plan, Charles would smoothly inherit the Green family, drive out me, the daughter who betrayed her, and she wanted me to kneel at her feet, begging for forgiveness, filled with regret. But now, everything has turned around. They lost everything, jumping up and down like clowns, powerless to do anything. I look at them and feel nothing that I should. Though blood is thicker than water, the bond between us is thinner than a sheet of paper. I don't regret doing this, because if I hadn't, the one left with nothing now would be me. Charles is undoubtedly a genius, but he was born too late. The time he lacks is enough for me to crush him completely. Unlike their misery and disappointment, I am young and accomplished. With a clever switch, I stole the spotlight. Mia seemed to have finally come to her senses. She found me and, just as I remembered, cried again with pear blossoms and rain, looking pitiful and delicate. Grace, Mom knows she was wrong. I shouldn't have treated you that way. I was just so angry back then. You were all I had left, but you refused to come with me. I was so furious that I lost my mind, which is why I targeted you like that. Please forgive me. Okay, deep down, I knew that her tears weren't because she truly realized her mistakes, but because I had taken away the wealth and luxury she desired. The men and son she valued had all become penniless, burdened with massive debts, while I, the daughter she despised, had become wealthy. I have only one question. All the harm I suffered because of you when I was a child, was it all intentional on your part? Hearing my words, Mia instantly widened her eyes, visibly shaken and doubtful. Seeing her reaction, I understood. It wasn't just my paranoia. All those harms were deliberately caused by Mia. She didn't want her own daughter to live a good life. So, taking me on the run, making sure I didn't have enough to eat, intentionally making me sick, deliberately causing me injuries, not wanting me to go to school, all of it was done on purpose by her. Mia shook her head frantically and crawled on her knees to get in front of me. Grace, how could you think that way? I am your mother. How could I ever hurt you? I shook off her hand, finally extinguishing the last trace of familial affection in my heart. Mia, you are no longer my mother, just as you once told me. We are strangers to each other. Seeing me so unyielding, Mia went mad. Howling at the sky, her voice was hoarse as she finally spoke the words buried deep in her heart. I always knew you were a wretched person. I knew it from the moment I was pregnant with you. You tormented me, made me suffer from morning sickness, gave me a difficult labor, and I almost died. So what's wrong with how I treated you? At least I let you live. So that's how it is. So that's the reason. I looked up at the sky outside the floor-to-ceiling window with a sense of relief. Mia, you don't love me. You wanted me to hate this world. Now I'm telling you, you didn't succeed, because even if everyone in the world despises me, it doesn't matter. As long as I love myself, that's enough. Mia was still unwilling to let go. She rushed at me like a madwoman, trying to choke me. I'm going to kill you, bodyguard. Drag her out. Never let her get near me again. With my command, I watched as the disheveled, weeping woman was dragged away, crushed by a mountain of debt. Their days ahead will not be easy, and that is enough. From now on, Grace will live only for myself. After hearing the two stories above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section.